So the other day, I was thinking what would happen if the moon was made of cheese. It started out as a joke, but then I realized there's actually some pretty good science to back up my cheesy claims. And now I'm just trying to get this video out before Neil deGrasse Tyson does one on it. So here we go. If the moon were made of cheese, it wouldn't be a very pleasant place to visit. The surface of the moon is covered in a layer of regolith, which is basically shattered rock. On Earth, regolith is formed by rocks and minerals breaking down due to exposure to air and water over millions of years. On the moon, it's created by meteor impacts and then blown around by solar wind. But regardless of how it's made, regolith is extremely hard, like harder than anything you can chew. You might think that the force of your bite would be enough to break it apart, but you'd be wrong. You'd need an atomic force of about 150 piconewtons to break apart silicate minerals. And that's assuming you aren't biting into a metal-rich space rock. And yeah, those exist. They're called chandrules. Don't ask me how they got there. Science is weird. But let's assume you bit off of something non-metallic. After you broke through the rock, you'd find that the inside of the moon isn't quite as hard as its crust. In fact, it's malleable, kind of like wax. That's because the pressure deep inside the moon squeezes everything together so tightly that it changes the properties of the minerals. This also means that the atoms are really close together, which makes things run less efficiently. Sort of like how a crowded subway car is less efficient than one that has lots of space between the people on it. So it'd be pretty difficult to dig a hole through the moon. And since you can't have a hole without a path, you couldn't make a tunnel without bringing the whole thing down. But even if you could somehow miraculously chew through the entire moon, you still wouldn't reach cheese. According to scientists, the moon is mostly made of silicate rock and metal. Silicate minerals are the most common rock-forming minerals on the Earth's crust, and they all contain silicon and oxygen. Some examples are quartz, mica, and feldspar. These minerals don't taste like anything because they don't have molecules that interact with our taste receptors. The second most abundant type of mineral are sulfates, which also don't taste like anything. There are a few other minerals that are found on the moon that we might be able to identify. Olivine, for example, has a very specific, not very appetizing flavor that geologists describe as a salty, metallic, roasted, nutty taste with some pharmaceutical notes. And yes, that's really how they describe it. Pyroxene is another mineral that's found on the moon, and it tastes like a mixture of hardwood and burnt toast. Yikes. Then there's iron, which is the most abundant metal in the moon, and also happens to be what gives cheese its metallic taste. But unfortunately, the iron on the moon probably doesn't come with the same flavor because it's bonded to other elements. The only way we could extract it is by mining the moon and refining the metals, at which point it would be too late to turn it into cheese. So the moon might look like cheese from far away, but up close it looks more like granite, except with a little more iron in it. And while granite is a very hard rock, it tastes a lot like salt and pepper. And hey, those are two ingredients you might find in a Big Mac, a burger made of the moon. In order for the moon to be made of cheese, we'd need to replace the silicate minerals with milk proteins. But I'll tell you what, that is actually possible. There is a protein called casein that is found in dairy products and also happens to be the major component of most plastics. So if we replaced the silicate minerals with casein, we could end up with a moon that is indeed made of cheese. Now, this would change a lot of things about the moon. For example, it would become buoyant and float away into space. Or maybe it would melt and cause global warming. Okay, so maybe we shouldn't do that? But if we didn't mess up the recipe, we'd end up with an enormous cheddar wheel floating in the sky. And if you've ever tried actual cheese from Earth, you know it can be pretty hard to chew. So take that for what you will. Thanks for watching Parallelish. I'm Nova, your guide through the unknown. Want to explore more timelines? Tap the playlist above and keep diving into the what-ifs. Until next time, stay curious.